Hey guys, tonight we drift into the warm Aegean winds and the quiet slosh of seawater against a pebble beach. You're lying on your back, half buried in sun-baked sand, staring up at a sky that smells like salt and figs. The waves hum softly beside you. A fishing boat rocks gently offshore. There's a man nearby, barefoot in a deep purple cloak, gold ivy circlet sliding down his curls. He's smiling faintly. You're pretty sure he hasn't blinked in 5 minutes. Also, he looks vaguely drunk. You don't know it yet, but that's Dionysus. And you're not quite ready for what this man, this god, is about to do. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up slowly. The island of Icarus glows gold and green around you. Olive groves swaying lazily on the hills. A few goats blink at you like they know something you don't. The sea stretches endlessly behind them, quiet and deceptive. You squint toward the horizon. Was that a dolphin fin, or just your imagination? There's a stillness to this island, a kind of hush that feels like a theater stage just before the curtain rises. The man, Dionysus, doesn't seem to notice you, but his presence thickens the air like incense. He hums softly to himself, the kind of tune that feels older than language. Around his feet, little purple flowers bloom in the cracks of dry stone. No rain in weeks, and yet grapes. Tiny ones, growing in the dirt like they forgot they're supposed to take months. Historians still argue whether this story, the one you're stepping into, is myth, parable, or coded memory of real events. But something about this place feels real, tangible, like sand between your teeth real. You're not here by accident. Dionysus begins to walk, and though he hasn't spoken, you follow. Not out of fear, but because somehow not following would feel rude, disrespectful, like interrupting a very quiet performance you're lucky to witness. The path leads to a crumbling dock. A small merchant ship rocks gently against the wood, patched sails folded neatly like old laundry. You notice men aboard, rough voices, laughter. One squints toward the figure beside you, then spits. "Look at this one," he mutters, elbowing a crewmate. "All silk and no sense. Bet he's got coin." They don't see him the way you do. To them, Dionysus looks like an overdressed, possibly intoxicated aristocrat who wandered too far from his villa. A rich mark, easy pickings. And this is where the real story begins. You linger at the edge of the dock, watching the conversation unfold. The sailors, Tyrrhenian pirates, though they don't advertise that, are whispering, eyes glinting with greed. They think Dionysus is a noble's son, lost and ripe for ransom. You glance back at the god. He's still smiling. You don't know it yet, but this is one of those moments history rarely records properly. Not because it wasn't written, but because it wasn't believed. Gods turning men into dolphins? That's bedtime fodder, metaphor, allegory. Surely no one really thinks that happened, except, you're here. And the vines crawling toward the dock seem to have opinions of their own. There's a faint pressure in the air, like a storm gathering, not in the sky, but in the spaces between words. You feel it behind your ribs, a soft tension. Dionysus finally speaks, a voice low, musical. "Lovely ship," he murmurs to the crew. "Mind if I sail with you?" The pirates exchange grins. "Of course, noble one, of course." They don't ask your name. You realize slowly you're not the main character here. You're the witness, and you're about to learn what happens when mortals mistake a god for prey. The ship smells like old fish and new greed. You step cautiously onto the deck, barefoot, the planks warm from the sun and sticky with salt. Dionysus walks just ahead of you, humming softly, still smiling like someone watching children try to steal cookies from a table he built. The crew bustles around you. There are 8 of them, not counting you, and they each seem to be playing a role in a performance they don't know they're in. One's tightening ropes with dramatic flair. Another's pretending not to stare at Dionysus's gold clasp. A third loudly discusses how many talents of silver a noble's father might pay if his poor, pampered boy were found adrift and tied to a mast. You stay silent. The air tastes like tension and wine-soaked wood. You don't know if Dionysus has heard them, though of course he has. He hears everything. He just doesn't seem to mind. That's the unsettling part. The captain, a thick-armed man with a beard that looks like it was attached in a hurry, sidles up beside Dionysus and gestures toward a coiled rope. "Make yourself comfortable, my lord," he says with just enough sarcasm to seem polite. Dionysus does exactly that. He sits on the rope pile like it's a cushioned throne and plucks a grape from thin air, literally. One moment his hand is empty, and the next, grape. He pops it into his mouth and sighs contentedly. You notice the youngest crew member, the one with a ragged tunic and wide eyes, staring, not in suspicion, in awe, like he almost recognizes what he's looking at but can't quite name it. A few more years of life and maybe he'd bow, but he won't get the chance. Historians still argue whether this particular pirate crew really existed. Some place them near Tyrrhenia, others swear they were Ionian raiders. What's consistent is this: they were greedy, loud, and very bad at identifying gods in disguise. The ship creaks as it pushes off from the dock. You glance back at the island, at the goats, the sand, the spot where you woke up. It fades quickly behind you, swallowed by the sea. "Wine, my lord?" one pirate jokes, holding up a battered skin of something that smells like regret. Dionysus grins. "Already had some, but thank you." Then, casually, he flicks his fingers. It starts small. A few vines sprout near the mast. You assume they were there already, maybe tied for luck or offerings to Poseidon. But no, they're fresh, green, growing, and fast. You blink and they're winding upward, curling like lazy snakes around the rigging. The crew doesn't notice at first. They're still talking ransom, still planning how to divide up the imaginary payment. Some want to wait for nightfall. Others want to send a message immediately. The captain just wants to get far enough out that no one hears screaming. Dionysus watches them like a bored playwright, not angry, not upset, just interested. Then you feel it, the shift, not in the sky or water, but in the sound. The creaking of the wood grows melodic. The sails flutter like tambourines. A faint music rises from nowhere, flutes and drums soft and unsettling, like a party you can't see. You glance around, no instruments, no musicians, just sound. The youngest crew member stumbles. What is that?" No one answers him. Instead, someone else laughs and says, "The wine's going to his head." Except he didn't drink any. You see Dionysus stand slowly, vines now twining gently around his ankles. He walks the deck as though it's a stage, and maybe it is. Maybe it always has been. You can't take your eyes off him, neither can the pirates. "Something's not right," the first mate mutters. "He's doing something." "Don't be stupid," the captain snaps. "He's just a man." You know better. You're standing 10 feet away, and already he doesn't feel like a man. He feels like a story come to life, one of the old ones, the kind your grandmother warned you about before bed. Don't wander into the woods, don't ignore the signs, and never insult a stranger in strange clothes. You look down and realize your feet are wet. The deck is leaking, not water, wine. Deep red, sloshing from the seams and the planks like the ship is bleeding Merlot. The smell hits you first. Sweet, heady, rich. You feel lightheaded. The others notice too. One yelps, another slips. "The barrels!" someone shouts. "Check the barrels." But they're dry, every last one. The wine is coming from the ship itself. The captain grabs Dionysus's arm. "What are you?" Dionysus just smiles. "You offered me a ride." Then the sky shifts. Not the color, the texture. It looks draped, like velvet, like a theater curtain dropping. Shadows deepen, light bends. The ocean around you ripples in slow motion. And you understand something crucial. You're no longer sailing through the real world. You've stepped into a performance. And the director? He's wearing a grapevine crown. You grip the side of the ship, knuckles white, as the sea becomes something else entirely. It isn't just water anymore. It's reflective, syrupy, like you're sailing across a dark mirror smeared with dreams. The sky presses low, not stormy, but dense, like velvet soaked in sound. Somewhere off the bow, laughter echoes, but not from any throat you can see. The pirates have noticed. Oh yes, they've noticed. The first to speak is the tall one with the broken nose. "We've taken a madman," he mutters. "He's cursed us." "Cursed?" Another scoffs, though his voice wavers. "He's some princeling with a magician's tricks. We toss him overboard, and that'll end it." Dionysus tilts his head. "No," he says, so gently you almost don't hear it. "It won't." The vines have reached the sails now, blooming violently with grapes in impossible clusters. One pirate tries to hack them down with a blade. The leaves wrap around his wrist, lovingly, and the sword drops with a soft clatter. You see his hand tremble, then twitch, then still. He backs away, muttering something about his mother. You, meanwhile, stay near Dionysus, not out of bravery, but because standing near him feels like standing beside the eye of a hurricane. Calm, observed, terrifying. Historians still argue whether this tale reflects an actual cultic ritual or a symbolic punishment of sea raiders who mocked local deities. Some think it was meant to scare would-be pirates into honoring their gods. Others see it as an allegory for loss of control. How ecstasy and fear can spiral into madness when you mock the divine. But you're watching it unfold in real time. The pirates have started yelling over each other now. One suggests rowing back. Another says they should tie him up properly this time. A third, eyes wide, sweat pouring, swears he saw a tiger slink across the deck. And honestly, you did too. Just for a second. A flicker of movement, low and powerful between two barrels. A flash of striped fur and gleaming teeth. It's gone now, but your stomach twists. You didn't imagine it. The youngest sailor, the wide-eyed one, leans close to you. "I think he's a god." You nod slowly. Dionysus turns toward the crew, arms open as if addressing an audience. His voice is warm, lilting, too calm. "You took me aboard in disguise," he says. "You plotted to sell me, bind me, use me." A few pirates draw weapons. One raises a club, but his hands are shaking too badly to swing. "And yet," Dionysus continues smiling, "you dressed me in silk with your minds, called me noble, elevated me." He steps forward. The ship doesn't rock. The sea seems to hold its breath. "Now I will return the favor," he says. The deck begins to shift, slowly at first like a drunken dancer finding rhythm. The wood beneath your feet pulses with something alive, something ancient. The air thickens with scent, grapes, honey, sweat, myrrh. You feel dizzy, like the edge of a dream where logic has already slipped away, but you haven't noticed yet. Then the flutes start, not in the air, in your bones. You feel them before you hear them. A warble in your ribs, a gentle pressure behind your eyes. The music crawls up through your limbs, turning your muscles to warm syrup. The pirates begin to dance, not by choice. They move with jerky, panicked limbs at first, trying to resist. But their bodies betray them. Hips sway, feet stomp, arms lift. Their faces are locked in expressions of fear, confusion, and something far more dangerous. Joy. Dionysus's illusions are not just punishments, they are seductions. One pirate twirls in place, laughing manically, eyes rolled back. Another sinks to his knees, weeping and swaying. The panther returns, yes, this time fully visible, and prowls among them, tail flicking, golden eyes gleaming with approval. You cling to the mast. Your head buzzes with wine that you haven't drunk, and music you don't want to dance to. But your feet, they tap softly. Historians still debate what this moment represents. Was it symbolic madness, proof of divine power through chaos? Was it an initiation rite distorted into myth? Some claim the dolphin transformation was a warning to honor the wine god's festivals. Others see it as poetic justice for exploiting strangers. One pirate falls flat, mouth foaming, legs twitching like he's tangled in invisible vines. Another runs to the railing, ready to dive, but the sea isn't the sea anymore. It glows faintly. It pulses like a heartbeat. He stumbles back, terrified. You look at Dionysus. He meets your eyes. And for the first time, you feel seen. Not just looked at, seen. Like he's reading your whole story at once and finds it mildly amusing. He gestures slightly. The wind dies, the flutes slow, and the vines stop growing. The silence that follows feels enormous. but the worst is what is still to come. You stand frozen, breath shallow, as the ship bobs gently in that too quiet sea. The pirates, still panting, slowly peel themselves off the deck, confused, drenched in sweat, and all thoroughly disturbed by their own unwilling performance. A few glance at each other, as if hoping someone else will say it first. What just happened? Dionysus doesn't answer. He's no longer smiling. The grapes along the mast have shriveled, replaced now by flowering ivy. The scent in the air shifts, less festive, more ancient, something heavier, the same smell that might curl from temple ruins or the inside of an unmarked tomb. The sea has stilled, completely, not a ripple, not a wave. The sails hang slack, limp like forgotten laundry. Yet the ship moves, drifting forward under no wind. The youngest sailor looks to the horizon. We're not going back, are we? No one replies. Even the captain has gone quiet, his earlier arrogance dissolved into a kind of stiff, unwilling reverence. He avoids looking at Dionysus. Maybe he finally suspects what you already know, that this man isn't just a god, he's a god in a mood. The ship groans as the deck warps beneath your feet, wood stretching and breathing like it's exhaling centuries. The shadows have thickened, not darkness but texture, like ink soaking into papyrus. Then the first pirate screams. You whirl around just in time to see him clutching his chest, eyes wide, gasping. His skin begins to ripple, subtle at first, like a chill, but then it shifts, smooths, shines. It happens fast. His fingers fuse, his legs twist unnaturally. You hear a crack, then a splash. He's gone. The others rush to the edge, gasping, but there's no body, just a dolphin. A sleek, gray shape cutting through the wine-dark water, circling the ship once, then diving deep. Another scream, another transformation. One by one, they begin to fall, sometimes from pain, sometimes from panic. A tall one tries to climb the rigging, but his legs buckle halfway up and slip out from under him like noodles. He tumbles down, hits the deck, and rolls off into the water. Splash. Gone. You catch a glimpse of a dolphin leaping, arching high above the deck before plunging back into the sea. No blood, no bones, just dolphins. Historians still debate whether these transformations were meant literally or metaphorically. Some argue this was a moral tale, punishment wrapped in poetry. Others believe the story encodes a kind of cultic truth, a rite of passage, a spiritual undoing. The Tyrrhenian pirates, after all, were known to abduct strangers for ransom. Maybe this myth was a community's way of saying, try that again, and you'll swim forever. You cling to the mast, shaking, then you feel it, a warmth at your back. You turn. Dionysus is standing behind you. He places a hand on your shoulder. It's light but heavy at the same time, like being noticed by the sun. You didn't join them, he says. You try to answer, but your throat closes. Was that your choice? You're not sure. You just didn't. Maybe because you didn't laugh. Maybe because you didn't raise a hand. Maybe because you were too afraid to lie to him. He watches the sea. The last pirate, a bearded man who'd mocked Dionysus most loudly, crawls toward the edge of the ship, sobbing. Please, he wheezes. I didn't know. Dionysus raises a brow. You didn't ask. With that, the man convulses, groans, and slides overboard, hands shrinking, feet disappearing. One last cry, high-pitched and watery, then splash, then silence. Just a pod of dolphins now, circling the hull, clicking gently as if singing to one another. You lean over the side, watching them. One tilts its head towards you. The eyes, they're wrong. Too human, too aware. A shiver runs down your spine. And yet they don't seem angry, just resigned. You speak softly. Do they know what happened? Dionysus nods. Some, others only dream. He walks toward the center of the ship. The panther is waiting for him, curled lazily beside a crate of now rotten fruit. You take a step closer to the god. Why dolphins, you ask? He smiles faintly, as if the question pleases him. Because I'm not cruel, he says. You blink. That's not what I expected you to say. He chuckles. I could have left them as rats, or seaweed, or made them feel every regret they buried. But dolphins, they dance, they sing, they remind humans of joy, and I want them remembered. You think about that. Somewhere, a dolphin chirps, another rolls on its side, showing its belly to the sun. Dionysus sits cross-legged on the deck, eyes distant now, maybe remembering something older than memory. You sit beside him. The sky has softened, the velvet texture beginning to peel away. The ship gently rocks again. Normal wind, normal sea. But you are not the same. You sit with Dionysus as the sky untangles itself above, slowly threading back into blue. The illusions retreat like polite guests after a masquerade, leaving behind only faint scents and stranger memories. The sails flutter again. The sea breathes. But you don't. Not just yet. You glance around at the empty deck. No voices, no laughter. Just you, the god, and a suspiciously relaxed panther. Below, the dolphins weave through the waves, circling in perfect silence. Their gray backs glint in the sun like coins flicked across a fountain. You half expect them to speak. They don't. But their movements feel deliberate, like choreography in slow motion. You shift uneasily. Are they free? Dionysus shrugs. Freer than they were. You wait for elaboration. None comes. Historians still argue whether the dolphin story is an origin myth, an attempt to explain why dolphins are so playful, so oddly human in their behavior. Some say this myth was created to place Dionysus among the sea gods, to connect his mystery cult with Mediterranean seafarers. Others think it was an allegory for transformation under duress, punishment softened by mercy. But none of that matters to you right now, because now the sea is turning into a theater. You blink, once, twice. At first you think it's a trick of the light, sunlight shimmering on the waves. But no, the surface below begins to shimmer like polished obsidian, and reflections start to rise. Not your own. Curtains, candles, a flute player in a mask. You lean over the railing and watch, wide-eyed, as a play unfolds on the surface of the water. It's the pirate's story, again, but stylized. Their clothes are richer now, their movements exaggerated. One twirls dramatically, a stage-worthy rendition of his real-life stumble. Another weeps into a goblet far too large for his hands. Are they actors? You whisper. Echoes, Dionysus replies, performing themselves. You watch in fascinated silence. The water ripples never break the illusion. It's like watching a rehearsal of your own past with someone else's face. A shadow play, a dream trapped in amber. The panther yawns. A soft flute melody curls through the air, this time from above deck, not inside your bones. You follow the sound, drawn like a moth toward meaning. And there it is, a small, masked figure sitting atop the stern rail, legs swinging, playing a bone-white flute carved with ivy leaves. You hadn't seen them before. They stop playing and tilt their head toward Dionysus. No words, just acknowledgement. The god nods slightly, and the figure vanishes into mist. You blink again. Yep, gone. You're not even surprised anymore. You sigh and lean back against the railing, suddenly very aware of how tired you are. The tension has finally started to leak from your limbs. Your feet ache. Your head buzzes like it's still full of borrowed music. The dolphins leap again, synchronized, effortless. Dionysus watches them. I never wanted followers, he murmurs, just witnesses. You frown. Isn't that the same thing? No, he says, and looks at you with eyes that could end wars. A follower expects answers, a witness accepts the mystery. You let that hang between you. The sea play has faded now. The water is just water again. The deck is still. Where are we going? You ask, realizing only now that you never asked earlier. Dionysus grins. Wherever the story ends. Which is where? He raises his goblet, the same one he didn't have a second ago, and lets red wine slosh lazily over the side. You'll know when we get there. Typical god answer. Still, you take a deep breath. The wind has changed again. There's something ahead now. You can't see it, but you feel it in your bones, like a memory you don't have yet. The ship creaks softly. You look down. The wood is glowing, very faintly. tiny veins of gold running through the planks like someone has buried sunlight in the grain. Dionysus notices your stare. "Old ship," he says, smiling. "She sailed through more than water." You think about that. Think about the gods who never made it onto Olympus, who wander in disguise, half-remembered, mostly mispronounced. Dionysus doesn't seem to mind being misunderstood. He seems to prefer it. "Why show me?" you ask. He tilts his head. "Because you listened." That catches you off guard. "You didn't talk much," he adds, "but you listened. That's rarer than faith." Another dolphin surfaces beside the ship, coasting close enough to touch. Its eye finds yours. The gaze lingers. You wonder what it remembers. Then it slips beneath the waves. Gone, but not gone. The ship sails on. The hours pass strangely now, not in minutes or degrees of sunlight, but in stories, unspoken ones. You sit on a barrel that smells of salt and old figs, watching the horizon refuse to stay still. Sometimes it flickers, like stage lighting behind gauze. Other times it melts, soft pinks into grays into golds. A ship's journey without time, only tone. Dionysus paces the deck barefoot, not worried. No god ever really paces from stress, but thoughtful, like someone rewriting a play in his head. Every so often, he hums a few bars of music that haven't been invented yet. The panther follows, tail flicking, occasionally batting lazily at the vines still curled around the mast. You think you see something odd in the water. Not dolphins this time. Antlers. You blink. Gone. Or maybe not, because the ship's deck has started to shimmer again, and the shadows it casts are no longer its own. You see hooves, feathers, masks, dancers, and the sea becomes theater once more. Dionysus doesn't stop this time. He walks straight through it, and it parts for him, not like a man passing through a curtain, but like a wave recognizing its wind. You follow, as always. You pass a satyr, bare-chested, grinning, one hand clutching a wineskin, the other waving at nothing. He winks at you before vanishing in a spray of salt. You pass a goat-headed man performing somersaults on an invisible platform. You pass a woman in gold robes standing perfectly still, wine dripping endlessly from a goblet that never empties. None of this is real, and all of it is real. You're not sure when you realize that the ship is no longer floating. It's drifting, not over water, but through story. You look down and see not sea, but land, not physically, but imagined. Beneath you, a village half painted in sun, a temple, a procession, women in ivy crowns and barefoot priests holding masks made of bark and bone. You are sailing through memory. Dionysus smiles when he notices your awe. "You're ready," he says. "For what?" "To see the whole show." And suddenly, you're not on the deck anymore. You're in the center of it. The ship becomes a stage, a literal one, complete with footlights and painted backdrops. You stand on a wooden platform beneath stars so close you could scrape your fingers against them. The audience? Goats, dentim nymphs, men with donkey ears. A few humans, maybe. Some are eating grapes. One appears to be asleep. Another is weeping quietly into a melon rind. The play begins without warning. You see Dionysus enter, not as himself, but as an actor, masked, grand, his movements exaggerated, theatrical. He's captured, mocked, tied to a mast. You know this scene. It's the pirates again. But this time it's stylized, performed with masks and music. The pirates are clowns, their greed played for laughs. One wears a fish on his head. Another wields a sausage like a sword. The crowd roars with delight. But then the music shifts. The vines appear again, faster now. The laughter dies down. One pirate shrieks as the mask turns into a tree. Another dances involuntarily, puppet-like, until he collapses in sobbing exhaustion. The dolphin transformation happens again, but this time the moment is slowed. One actor drops to his knees. The mask comes off. Beneath it, a dolphin's face painted gently on fabric. He bows to the audience, then slips behind the curtain. You understand now. This isn't just a punishment story. It's a ritual. Historians still debate whether Dionysian theater emerged from cult practice or vice versa. Did the masks and processions grow from stories like this, Or did this story evolve to suit a performative faith? You stand at the center of it and realize the answer doesn't matter, because the point was never fact, it was feeling. The performance fades, the stage dissolves into plank and rope again. You're back on the ship, the wind has returned, the sea glitters, real waves now, real sky. Your hands are trembling, but your heart is oddly still, like someone has cracked your chest open and poured something warm inside. Dionysus leans beside you. He's holding a new mask. It looks like yours. You played the part well, he says. I didn't do anything. Exactly. The dolphins surface one more time as if to clap. The mask sits heavy in your hands. Not literally, it's light as cork and linen, painted in soft earthy reds with black around the eyes, but somehow it carries weight, like it knows something about you, like it remembers. You look up from it to Dionysus, who watches you with the amused detachment of someone who's orchestrated 100 such performances and still finds them mildly entertaining. You said I didn't do anything, you say. He shrugs, barefoot toes curling over the ship's warm wood. Doing is overrated. Witnessing, that's where the magic lives. The sea's calm again. The dolphins are gone, at least for now. The vines are drying out, curling inward like they've grown sleepy. Even the panther seems bored, sprawled across a crate of figs, snoring softly. You wonder if it dreams. You didn't kill them, you say, after a while. No, Dionysus replies. I gave them form, that's all. You turned them into dolphins. I turned them into stories. Historians still puzzle over this particular mercy. Why dolphins? Why not oblivion or torment or stone? In a pantheon full of firebolts and curses, Dionysus chooses grace as his punishment, a soft rebuke. The pirates don't die screaming. They live on, sleek and silent beneath the waves, playful and oddly human, and most of all, remembered. People don't forget dolphins, Dionysus says, as if hearing your thoughts. They smile when they see them. They wonder. They listen. You think of modern aquariums, of squeals and splashes, of marine biologists whispering reverently about echolocation, the echo of a god's laughter, maybe. You settle onto the deck beside him. The air has cooled. Somewhere far off, gulls call out. Real gulls. You're pretty sure this time. The magic is ebbing, like tide water slipping back into the sand. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and that's when the ship creaks again, not loudly but purposefully. It's not rocking anymore. It's drifting towards something. You rise and step to the bow, peering ahead. In the distance, a rocky island rises from the sea, ringed with low cliffs and crowned by scrubby pines. There's a cove on the near side, tranquil, secluded, with a shoreline made not of sand, but smooth, glinting black stones. The ship slides in like a memory returning to the surface. Where are we? You ask. Dionysus doesn't answer directly. He just smiles and says, This is where the dolphins return. You disembark barefoot, soles meeting cool stone that clicks lightly underfoot. The air smells of salt and thyme. A breeze hums low through the trees like a voice too old to sing words anymore. No dolphins in sight, not yet. You and Dionysus walk inland. There's no path, but he doesn't need one. The plants lean away from him gently, as if they know who he is. Bees circle lazily around wildflowers. A rabbit watches from a thicket and doesn't flee. You arrive at a clearing, small, circular, and oddly symmetrical. Stone benches ring its edge, and in the center a weathered altar smudged with wine stains and wild herbs. Ivy clings to it like an old friend. This is one of my quieter places, Dionysus says. Few people come anymore. You sit. He stands. The panther curls beneath the altar and exhales a long, contented sigh. Did they build this for you? You ask. He runs a hand along the altar edge. Not quite. They built it for what I gave them. Stories, harvests, nights they couldn't remember and didn't want to. Ecstasy, you say softly. And release, he nods. The world has teeth. I gave them music. You tilt your head. And wine. Same thing. He smiles again, but this one carries a touch of weariness. You wonder then, not for the first time, how it feels to be a god who brings joy and yet is always feared, a god of madness but also of healing, of masks but also truth. Historians still wrestle with this contradiction. Dionysus, the liberator and the destroyer. Some say his cult gave power to the voiceless, women, outcasts, the poor. Others argue it courted chaos, destabilized the civic order. But here, now, there is no argument, only presence. The shadows grow longer. The cove shimmers through the trees, and then you hear it, a soft splash, then another. You return to the shore and see them. Dolphins, a dozen at least, maybe more, their smooth backs slicing the water in quiet arcs. They come close, close enough for you to see eyes that linger too long, expressions just a touch too thoughtful. They're watching you. Dionysus wades in up to his knees. The dolphins circle him, not like pets, but like old friends greeting someone they once knew differently. He raises a hand. They rise together, 3 or 4 at a time, breaching the water's surface like dancers hitting a silent cue. Perfect, effortless, sad. Then they vanish beneath the waves once more. And for a moment, the sea is still. You feel the story winding inward now, not ending, just coiling gently into rest. The air is thick with dusk. The god turns to you and nods once. The lesson is done, but the memory remains. You remain by the water, toes brushing the edge of the cove, watching the surface return to glass. The dolphins are gone again, perhaps to deeper waters, perhaps to sleep. You can't be sure they even sleep. They don't move like creatures that need to. They move like thoughts, slipping in and out of sight without apology. Dionysus is beside you, quiet now. You sit together for a long while. The silence isn't empty. It's full in that way old forests are full, teeming with things you can't see but feel watching you all the same. The air hums with low cicada song, and distant waves comb the shore in slow repetition. What do they remember? You ask finally, your voice barely a ripple. He doesn't answer right away. Then, some remember dancing, some remember falling, most remember fear, right before the change. You glance down at your reflection in the water, soft, flickering, stretched by ripples. You look different somehow, not older, just witnessed. Do they still feel like men? You ask. Dionysus shrugs. What's a man, really? A shape, a name, a habit of walking upright and worrying about taxes. You snort unexpectedly. He smiles. I gave them a shape they couldn't break, something softer, sleeker, calmer. You pause. But they didn't ask. No, he agrees. They didn't. Historians still argue over the ethics embedded in Dionysus's myths. Is he a savior or a trickster? Did he liberate or deceive? Was his mercy genuine, or just another expression of his own drama-loving nature? But here, by the shore, you begin to wonder if the answer is yes, all of it. You don't do things halfway, you murmur. He chuckles. Where's the fun in halfway? You lie back in the sand, arms stretched out, eyes tracing the clouds overhead. Soft, long skeins of wool drifting in lavender sky. The breeze threads through your hair like an old friend combing it for the last time. Beside you, Dionysus begins to hum again. It's a new tune, or very old. You can't tell. It sounds like a lullaby hummed by someone who's already forgotten why they started singing. Then, something else happens. One of the dolphins reappears, not leaping, not gliding, but slow, intentional. It swims directly toward the shore, stopping just shy of the shallows. Its head bobs above the water, and you can feel its gaze. You step forward slowly. The dolphin turns sideways, showing a pale scar near its eye, jagged, familiar. You blink. It's the youngest pirate, the one who whispered to you in panic, the one who almost believed. His eyes now, animal, yes, but still aching with understanding. He lingers, unmoving. You kneel, and the water brushes your knees. I remember you, you say. He flicks his tail, sending a slow ripple outward. Not away, just acknowledgement. And then he dives, a single graceful arc, and is gone again. You return to the shore, heart oddly full. They can't speak, you whisper, but they can answer. Dionysus, already reclined on a piece of driftwood, nods. They sing, they mourn, they forgive faster than men do. You sit beside him again, this time more easily. The wind picks up, just enough to raise goosebumps. A silence falls again, softer now. It wraps around you both like an old tapestry. You speak after some time. I thought gods only cared about temples, statues, worship. He lifts one eyebrow. That's for Zeus and the accountants. You chuckle again. Me? He says. I care about memory, laughter, the taste of something almost spoiled but still sweet, things that slip through your fingers if you squeeze too hard. You look around the cove, at the weathered stones, the ivy-claimed altar, the shoreline pocked by time. No crowds, no offerings, just a place held open by remembering. And suddenly, you understand why the pirates became dolphins. Not because Dionysus needed to punish them, but because he needed them not to be forgotten. Because the gods, too, fear being forgotten. Even him, especially him. You wake from a shallow doze, unsure how long you've been sitting there. The cove looks different now, warmer somehow, lit by the soft orange hush of early twilight. Dionysus hasn't moved. He sits quietly beside the altar, gazing out at the sea like he's waiting for a curtain to fall. You wonder how long he's waited for anything. You stretch, joints popping, and the panther, still inexplicably here, still terrifying, gives a lazy blink and yawns wide enough to flash every fang it owns. Dionysus stands. We should eat, he says simply, as if this is the most ordinary day in the world. You blink. Eat? Like dinner? He nods. You've been walking through stories, that burns energy. Before you can protest that you're fine, he claps once, softly, and the clearing is no longer empty. A cloth is spread across the altar. Bowls of figs and soft cheese and fresh bread appear as if the forest exhaled them. Honey glistens in a small clay dish. A handful of pomegranates sit cracked open, glistening like jewels next to a pitcher that somehow never empties. You're not surprised anymore. You sit and the food is real. Salt and sugar and warmth all at once. The bread is still warm, the kind that hums under your fingers when broken. Why feed me? You ask, mouth full. He tears into a fig. Because you're still mortal, and you made it this far without screaming. You chew slowly, watching him. The way he eats is thoughtful, unhurried, like someone who's seen empires burn but still pauses for the right cheese. You don't seem very divine, you say, and immediately regret it. But Dionysus just laughs. I'm not very interested in seeming divine, he says. That's Apollo's thing. He likes shine and order and people bowing at the right angles. He picks up a grape and rolls it between his fingers. Me? I like mess. Laughter, someone spilling wine and deciding that's part of the dance. Historians still argue about Dionysus's place in the divine hierarchy. Was he adopted late into Olympus? Was he resented, resisted, celebrated in the streets but mocked in the halls of power? Some myths say Hera refused to acknowledge him. Others say Zeus gave birth to him from his thigh just to spite convention. No one seems to agree, but all agree on this. Dionysus didn't fit, and maybe that's the point. Is it true, you ask between bites, that you weren't supposed to be one of the 12? He smiles. It is and it isn't. Olympus is a theater. The cast changes. Sometimes someone gets written out mid-scene, and sometimes the understudy turns out to be the god of wine. He raises a cup, grinning. You clink yours without thinking. The wine is cold and dark and full of flavors you don't have names for. You take another sip, and the edges of your thoughts loosen like shoelaces. Is it lonely, you ask, being in the story and outside of it? He watches you a moment, then says softly, only when people forget to laugh. The panther chuffs in its sleep. The food disappears slowly. You aren't ravenous, but you find yourself full of warmth, full of images, full of something that wasn't there when you woke up on that beach. Dionysus sets down his cup. I want to show you something, he says. You rise and follow him, weaving through the trees. The light is dim now, dusky violet slipping toward blue. The wind is cooler, but not cold. He He leads you along a rocky path up a slight ridge. At the top, the trees fall away, revealing a wide view of the sea, calm, endless, humming. You see them again, the dolphins, swimming in tight, slow spirals just offshore, peaceful, purposeful. They come here sometimes, he says, when the tide is right, when the sky is soft enough to remember. You glance at him. Do they know they were men? Maybe, he says, maybe not in words, but something in them knows. You watch them for a while. There's a kind of grace to it, not happy, not sad, just acceptance. The way a story ends, not with resolution, but with the quiet understanding that nothing needs explaining anymore. They're still here, you whisper, and so are you. The two of you stand in silence, overlooking the sea until the stars start pricking through the sky like candlelight through worn cloth. The horizon softens, even the dolphins begin to fade into silhouettes, gliding beneath the dark surface like moving punctuation marks in a sentence that never ends. You sit on a boulder. Dionysus doesn't. He stands still, arms loose at his sides, like he's waiting for a line he once wrote to be spoken back to him. And maybe he is. You weren't always a god, you say, surprising yourself with the confidence of the question. He turns, amused. No one is, not at first. Historians still debate whether Dionysus began as a mortal, as some myths suggest, a man elevated to godhood through suffering and revelation, or whether he was divine from the start, just inconveniently born into a messy human timeline. The truth, as with all myths, depends on who's telling it and why. You watch him as he lowers himself onto a low stone across from you. There was a time, he says, voice lower now, when Olympus had no seat for me, when I wandered. Where? Everywhere, nowhere, through cities and forests and the minds of drunk men telling stories they wouldn't remember. You chuckle lightly. He smiles. I learned that if they won't build you a throne, you throw a festival so loud they can't ignore you. You nod. It tracks. I crashed their mountain, he adds. Olympus. I wore a mask, brought a band, and kicked the door open. Metaphorically? He lifts an eyebrow. Very literally. There's a pause. Did they accept you? You ask. He leans back, resting on his elbows. Eventually, after I made them laugh, and weep, and dance, and admit they needed something they couldn't define. Madness, you say. No, he replies. Permission. You tilt your head. To feel too much, he explains. To collapse with joy, to scream with grief, to become something wild and temporary and human. I gave them the excuse. And suddenly, everything clicks. The dolphins, the pirates, the vines, the flute, the theater. Dionysus is not just the god of wine and madness, he's the god of release, of every moment humans tried to contain and failed. You glance at him with new eyes. You invented theater, didn't you? He shrugs, mock modest. I encouraged the impulse. Historians agree. The origin of theater is in Dionysian ritual. The dithyramb, choral hymns sung in his honor, became plays. Tragedy and comedy alike were born from his cult. The masks, the processions, the sacred roles all started with him. He wasn't just a subject of performance. He was the performance. You lie back again, looking at the stars, and imagine a world where every story begins not with logic, but with longing. Where divine truth isn't about rules or commandments, but about music and masks, and the moment when the self disappears into something larger, a story, a dream, a dance. I think I get it, you whisper. Dionysus doesn't respond immediately. Then, good. And it is good. Because suddenly you understand why he didn't smite the pirates, why he turned them into something graceful, why he performs his justice through metaphor and melody and vine. He doesn't punish the way other gods do. He rewrites. He edits the ending. Does it work? You ask, turning cruelty into memory. He looks out to sea. Depends who's remembering. Far below, the dolphins breach once more, 3 in a row, perfect and soundless against the star-powdered sea. You close your eyes for a moment and realize you don't need to ask what comes next. Because this isn't a tale with a next, it's a tale with a rhythm. You're walking now, somewhere between forest and dream, beneath a sky that's lost its edges. The trees sway not with wind, but with rhythm. You don't remember standing up or agreeing to follow Dionysus again, but your feet carry you through the dusk while you've always known this path. He walks ahead, no longer in robes or gold, but in something stranger, simplicity. A plain tunic, dust smudged, no crown, just a man humming an ancient tune that somehow sounds like every festival you've never attended. You step into a clearing. It is not quiet. There are women dancing, dozens, maybe hundreds, forming shifting circles that expand and collapse like breath. They wear ivy in their hair, sheer linens wrapped around sun-darkened shoulders, and masks that are both animal and divine. Some laugh, some cry, some look entirely still until they're not. The Maenads. You've heard of them. The women who followed Dionysus into the wilderness, who shed their names and roles and husbands and status and became something else entirely. Devotees, disciples, dancers. You step toward the circle, one notices you. She grins, a flash of white teeth behind a mask made of bark. Another tosses you a handful of wildflowers. A third grabs your wrist and spins you once before letting go. Gently, but with the force of something that could break you if it wanted. And then Dionysus enters the center. No words, no grand gestures, just presence. The circle tightens. Flutes begin. Drums. You don't know where the instruments are, but the music is real. It presses into your ribs, fills your lungs. It's not a beat you dance to. It dances through you. You stand at the edge of this storm of joy and madness and feel something terrifying. Relief. Like taking off a mask you forgot you were wearing. Historians still debate the nature of Dionysian rituals, whether they were empowering or dangerous, liberating or destabilizing. The Maenads were painted in myths as both holy and terrifying, capable of ecstasy and violence, of divine vision and literal dismemberment. But here, now, they just seem free. You watch as one woman breaks from the circle, arms raised, face lifted to the stars. She lets out a cry, not a scream, not a shout, a call, a truth. Another answers, and then silence. Not because the music stopped, but because you have changed. Something inside you now sways in rhythm with the trees. Dionysus turns to you. You don't have to dance, he says. I want to, you whisper. He smiles. That's the difference. You step forward. Your feet find the beat before your brain does. Your body moves not with skill, but with surrender. It's not about how it looks. It's about how it feels, the whine of movement, the forgetfulness of form. The Maenads open space for you. You belong, and you don't. You are a guest, and somehow also the story. When the music crests, you feel yourself lifted, not physically, but inside. Something you were holding on to loosens, not pain, not memory, something smaller and heavier, expectation. You let it go. Dionysus watches, not as a god, not as a judge, but as a host who is glad you showed up. The dance continues long into the night, and you do not count the hours, because you don't need to, because now you understand. Dionysus is not a god of control, he's a god of invitation. And tonight, you said yes. You wake curled beneath a tree, your limbs pleasantly sore, your hair tangled with crushed wildflowers. The clearing is empty now. The Maenads are gone, or maybe they never were. The drums are silent, but their rhythm still pulses somewhere inside your chest, a soft echo you're not ready to lose. Dionysus is sitting cross-legged beside a creek, splashing water on his face like a man who has nothing to prove and nowhere urgent to be. You sit up slowly, brushing off leaves. Was that real? He looks over his shoulder. You tell me. It's a non-answer, which means yes. You drink from the creek. The water is cold, pure, tasting faintly of pine and something sweeter. Your reflection shivers in the ripples, a little more sunburned maybe, a little less sure of where your journey ends. Where are we going next, you ask. Dionysus grins. To see where I was born, both times. Both? He laughs. I'm a little extra like that. You walk with him again, through a glade that smells of mint and myrrh, past trees that lean toward him as if listening. Eventually, you reach a ridge, and below it, a city, Thebes, or what's left of it. Dusty walls, olive trees, narrow alleys, worn into the earth by centuries of feet, a place with too much memory and not enough forgiveness. This is where I started, Dionysus says. He doesn't sound nostalgic. He sounds amused. Your mother was here, you ask. Semele, he says softly. A mortal, young, brave enough to love a god. Historians debate her story. Some say Zeus seduced her in secret. Others claim she was tricked into asking him to reveal his divine form, which burned her to ash. All agree she died too soon, and from her Dionysus was born, too early, too fragile. So Zeus did what no other god had ever done. He stitched the infant into his own thigh. I spent months there, Dionysus says, tapping his leg with mock pride. Warm, confusing, no complaints. You try not to laugh, but can't help it. It explains a lot, you say. He grins. Right? From thigh-born to wanderer to god. A weird origin, even for mythology. And yet, something about it makes perfect sense. Dionysus has always been the in-between, divine and mortal, joy and madness, structure and collapse. You pass through Thebes, no one sees you, not because you're invisible, but because you're elsewhere now, just slightly behind the curtain of the present. Dionysus leads you to a ruined courtyard. A fig tree grows through the stone. This was hers, he says, crouching. Semele's garden. She used to hum when she watered the herbs. You kneel beside him. There's a sense of something unfinished here, not haunting, just unspoken, a life cut short, a boy born too soon, a god who wasn't supposed to exist. She died because she asked to see him, you say? Dionysus nods. He warned her, but she wanted the truth, fire and all. And you never blamed him? Oh, I did, he says, for a long time, until I realized I do the same thing. You look at him, confused. I show people too much, he says. I peel back the masks. I pour the wine too fast. I let them see what their gods are really like. And then I watch what happens. There's no arrogance in his voice, only honesty. You stand together in the garden for a long while. The breeze plays with the leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a goat bleats without urgency. Then Dionysus starts walking again. You follow. He doesn't explain where you're going now, but you trust that the direction, like everything else with him, will make sense by the end. And sure enough, as you crest a low hill, you see a new landscape stretching below you. Vineyards, endless, sun-drenched rows of vines twisting up trellises like they're trying to reach the sky. A village nearby, small but lively. You hear laughter, pots clinking, a flute in the distance. Second birthplace, Dionysus says with a wink. You frown. I thought it was Zeus's thigh. He points to the fields. That was where I was born. This is where my name was born. You walk down toward the village together, and you realize this place isn't famous, but it remembers him, which, to Dionysus, is more than enough. The village greets you not with fanfare, but with the kind of warmth that feels earned. The people here don't recognize Dionysus in the way that myth demands. No kneeling, no gasps, no dramatic gestures, but they do smile when he passes. A few nod, others raise cups. A child waves, sticky with grape juice. He waves back, his face softening into something that looks suspiciously like home. You pass a baker's stall, flatbread stacked like sun-warmed bricks, and a woman selling honey in clay jars. There's a group of elders playing a dice game under a fig tree. Laughter rises. One of them smacks another's hand and curses without malice. They all pause to raise their cups to Dionysus. He raises his in return. Do they know, you ask? He tilts his head. Depends what you mean to know. They know you're a god? They know I'm something, he says, grinning. But mostly they know I've been good to their grapes. You glance around. The vineyards stretch for miles. It's late harvest season, purple and green jewels dripping from every trellis, every branch heavy with promise. Do you stay here long? You ask. Not really, just often. You understand. This isn't his throne, it's his anchor. You reach the town square where a large amphora sits at the center, enshrined on a pedestal. Around it, inscriptions circle the stone, worn but readable. Dionysus Eleutherius, you whisper. Dionysus the Liberator. Historians have long puzzled over this title. Liberator from what? From pain? From inhibition? From shame? His cults believed it was all of these. Freedom not just from chains, but from selves. From the expectations that bound men and women alike to roles they never chose. You sit on the edge of the fountain. A breeze carries the scent of wine and drying lavender. Somewhere nearby, someone begins to sing, slow and untrained, but real. Dionysus watches a pair of young lovers chase each other through the vines. Their laughter is loud, messy, full of unfinished jokes. He sighs, content. You ever miss Olympus? You ask. He shrugs. Not really. It's mostly meetings and thunder. You smirk. Besides, he continues, they only ever liked half of me, the respectable half, the wine in a goblet half, not the barefoot, flute-playing, dancing in the woods half. You're both, you say. He grins. Exactly, and they didn't know what to do with that. You think again of the dolphins, of the Maenads, of Semile's garden. Every part of his story is split. Dual, divine and human, chaos and clarity, and yet he doesn't seek balance, he simply is. The village begins to prepare for something. You hear the shuffle of feet, see stalls being closed early, children ushered into homes, lamps are lit, tables are set up in the square, someone uncorks a barrel. Festival? You ask. He nods. Nothing official, just a night. He doesn't need to explain. You feel it already, the air thickening with anticipation, the kind that gathers before a good rain or a particularly moving song. As twilight deepens, people return, this time with instruments, loaves of bread, ceramic jugs filled to the brim. You're handed a cup without needing to ask. The first toast is wordless, just the raising of hands, the clinking of clay. Then someone plays a lyre, and just like that, it begins again. Not a ritual this time, not a rite, just joy. The children dance first, feet pounding into dust, laughter echoing between the walls. The elders join soon after, slower but with deeper rhythm. A woman sings something improvised and too honest, and everyone claps off-beat, but no one cares. Dionysus steps into the square. He doesn't announce himself. He just spins once, laughs, and grabs the hand of a shepherd who shrieks with joy and forgets he has bad knees. You are pulled in next, arms tangled with strangers, cup long forgotten, head thrown back into a sky that no longer needs stars. And it's in this moment you realize, this is his temple, this is his church, not the altar or the amphora or even the myths, but this, laughter and wine stains in one night of not pretending. You dance until your body forgets how to be tired, until you become the rhythm, until you forget the question, and become part of the answer. By the time the music fades, the moon is high and swollen, casting soft blue light across the square. Bodies are strewn like petals, sleeping, humming, murmuring. A few still sway, too full of joy to stop moving entirely. Someone is gently snoring against a pillar. Someone else is trying to tell a story they've already forgotten the end of. You sit with your back against the fountain, heart still beating with borrowed rhythm. Dionysus is beside you, cross-legged, cradling a jug like a child. His tunic is stained, his hair tangled with olive leaves, and his face, his divine unshaven face, is peaceful. Do they know you're here? You whisper. He shakes his head. Not really. You pause. Do they care? He smiles. Not at all. And that's when it really settles in. He never wanted worship. He wanted witnesses, people to see joy and not flinch from it, to feel chaos and not run, to drink from the same cup and taste something alive. The air is cool now, touched by morning's edge. You don't sleep much, do you? You ask. Not when things are this beautiful. You glance around, at the tangled limbs, the flickering lanterns, the shallow bowls of crushed grapes, and nod. You understand, but you're not done. Not yet. There's something inside you, a question you've been holding on to since the ship, since the first Dolphin breach. Why do you always come back? You ask. He doesn't answer right away. He leans his head back and stares at the stars, so casually, like he remembers when each one was lit. I was never supposed to stay, he says softly. The other gods, they belong in marble and thunder. They're fixed. I'm movement. You wait. I go where I'm forgotten, he continues, where the harvest fails, where the music stops, where people forget how to feel. And then I return, quietly, through laughter, through a song no one remembers learning. You never stay long, you say. No, but I leave something behind. Historians have always noted the cyclical nature of Dionysus's worship. His festivals marked the seasons. His myths carried themes of disappearance and return, often symbolizing the dying and rebirth of vegetation, of life itself. But beneath that, something deeper hums, the rhythm of the human heart itself. I'm not a god of permanence, he says. I'm the break in the pattern, the gasp, the turning point in a song. You sit with that. It makes sense now, the pirates, the transformations, the madness, the laughter, the masks, the vines. None of it was meant to be fixed. It was all part of the movement, the release, the reminder. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine being one of those dolphins, caught mid-shift, flung into another form. You wonder, would you be scared? Would you remember your name? And would it matter? When you open your eyes again, the village is quieter. Dionysus stands, stretching. He tosses you an apple from nowhere. You catch it without looking. We're almost back, he says. Back where? He grins. Where we started. You follow him down winding paths, through olive groves dusted in starlight. The world feels rounder now, like a song nearing its final chord. Even the earth seems to soften beneath your feet. You hear the ocean before you see it. And then, the beach. The same one. Icarus. The sand still warm. The waves still whispering. You walk with him toward the edge, where the tide kisses the shore and retreats like breath. The same goats blink at you from a distance. One lets out a gentle, disinterested meh. Dionysus kneels and runs his hand through the sand. They still circle this island, he murmurs. You know who he means. The dolphins. The men who once tried to steal a god and ended up stories instead. They don't try to come back, you ask? He smiles, not unkindly. They are back. Every time someone tells this tale. You nod. You understand. Dionysus rises. He doesn't say goodbye, because gods like him don't. They vanish when you blink. Or maybe you just forget what their face looked like. Maybe you never really saw it clearly to begin with. You sit alone on the sand, the apple still in your hand, and far out in the water, just as the first light touches the horizon, you see them, dorsal fins, curving, dancing, watching, always watching. The sun rises slowly, as if unsure its welcome in such a place. You sit cross-legged in the sand, facing the water, letting the early light warm your skin. Everything is still. The sea hums, low and even. The wind fingers your hair like a lullaby. And out past the breakers, the dolphins still move. Small shadows in long arcs, circling the island like silent stewards of a story most have forgotten. You stay there, not because you're waiting, but because you're not. The panic you felt at the start, waking on an unfamiliar beach, trailing a barefoot stranger who turned out to be a god of questionable subtlety, that's gone now. What's left is something softer, a gentle ache, like the moment a song ends and you don't want to play it again just yet. You want to remember it first. You think about everything you've seen, the pirates, the vines, the panther, the flute-masked dancers, the garden in Thebes, the silent feast, the villagers who didn't bow, the laughter under moonlight, the dolphin with the scar who knew you, and Dionysus, the god who wandered, the god who returned. Historians still debate what Dionysus represents. They call him contradictory. They try to break him into pieces. Wine god, theater god, madness, fertility, death, resurrection. But here, on this beach, you realize the truth is simpler. He's change. That moment when something breaks open and becomes something else. Not by choice, not always with warning, but beautifully, necessarily. You hear footsteps in the sand. You don't turn. You know it's him. Dionysus sits beside you, quiet for a long time. Then, do you feel it? You nod. He smiles. Most people don't. They listen to the story, but they don't hear it. They see the dolphins and think it's a punishment. And it's not, you ask. He picks up a piece of driftwood and draws a spiral in the sand. It's a translation, he says. You watch the spiral curl and narrow, then widen again. You're not the same as when you arrived, he says. You nod again. You don't need a mirror to know that's true. Something in you, subtle but undeniable, has shifted. Like a cup once empty now holding something warm. Something waiting to be poured. What happens now, you ask? He shrugs. Whatever you carry forward. You look out at the sea. The dolphins breach, briefly, four in perfect synchrony. A brief ballet, and then gone again. I'll forget some of it, you admit. He nods. Of course, that's how stories work. You exhale, and something in that breath feels sacred, like letting go of an old skin. You glance over at him. Will I see you again? He grins. Maybe, if you ever need a reminder to dance. He stands and brushes the sand from his legs. The sky is bright now, full day. You rise slowly, feeling the stiffness in your muscles from everything you've seen and been and become. Dionysus waves once, then turns, walking back toward the tree line. You watch him go, half expecting him to vanish mid-step. He doesn't. He just moves until the shadows take him. And then it's just you. You turn back to the sea. The waves kiss the shore like they've always known it. The dolphins circle once more. And now, as the wind shifts, you hear something in their clicks and calls. A rhythm. Familiar. Steady. Like a story repeating. Like a song beginning again. You stay by the water a while longer, letting the rhythm of the waves ease everything inside you into stillness. The breeze softens, brushing past like a lullaby. You can smell the sea, the salt, the memory of wine-soaked figs and sun-warmed vines. You let your shoulders drop, let your breath fall into that slow, steady tide. This isn't the kind of story that needs a neat ending. Dionysus never cared for those. He prefers the ones that keep circling, flickering back when the stars come out or when laughter bubbles up in a quiet room. The dolphins are still out there, and maybe they always will be. Maybe next time you see one, you'll wonder. Or maybe you'll just smile, because somewhere deep in your bones you'll remember. Not the details, not every vine or panther or silver goblet, but the feeling of being near something wild and kind, of being allowed to let go, of becoming softer in the middle of a storm. You don't need to hold on to this story tightly. It'll return when you need it, just like he does. Now the sand is cool beneath you. The waves are slower, the sky lighter. Let that weight you didn't know you were carrying slip from your shoulders. Let it melt into the shore. You're safe here. You're whole. You're already home. Sleep well. And may the gods who wander remember your name.